Hi, my name's Lynn, and I am going to continue my series from the book The Road Less Traveled, written by M. Scott Peck. Today I'm going to get into chapter 2. It is entitled The Sins of the Father, and I will read a little bit out of the chapter and then I will do some commentary. It is not the homes of those unself-disciplined children are lacking in parental discipline of a sort. More often than not, these children are punished frequently and severely throughout their childhood, slapped, punched, kicked, beaten, and whipped by their parents for even minor infractions. But this discipline is meaningless because it is undisciplined discipline. And that's pretty self-evident, but I will add that obviously if you don't practice what you preach and you set a bad example, you want your kid to be disciplined and emotionally stable, and you're a hot emotional mess, being domestically violent, it's never going to work. So obviously it goes on to say they are undisciplined role models for their children. Now I think this chapter is really important because this is the foundation of all of us as we grow into adulthood and go through our lives. Our parents set an example and basically fill in the tape recording of the roles that we end up learning how to play in life. In other words, they imprint upon us. I always throw in this disclaimer, though, that you should never fall into the trap of blaming your parents for anything going wrong in your life. You have to take responsibility for it. It's really the purpose of this book. That doesn't mean, though, that you don't go in search of why you do what you do. Maybe you need to get some therapy and some help. If you've had such terrible patterning in your life that you just can't get to a place of mental health and stability, it's okay. Geez, everybody struggles in life. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Since we do not have the benefit of comparison when we are young, our parents are godlike figures to our childish eyes. When parents do things a certain way, it seems to the young child the way to do them, the way they should be done. So, our parents are literally gods in our mind. They can't do any wrong. We're little children. Obviously, we're very dependent upon our parents. If a child sees his parents day in and day out behaving with self-discipline, restraint, dignity, and a capacity to order their own lives, then the child will come to feel in the deepest fibers of his being that this is the way to live. So once again, we're talking about example. But then he goes on to talk about something even more important, and that is role modeling is love. For even in a chaotic and disordered home, genuine love is occasionally present, and from such homes may come self-disciplined children. And not infrequently, parents who are professional, people's doctors, lawyers, club women, and philanthropists who lead lives of strict orderliness and decorum, but yet lack love, send children into the world who are as undisciplined and destructive and disorganized as any child from an impoverished and chaotic home. So, we really do need to be loved by our parents, and it's a terrible tragedy when your parents don't have good role modeling when they were children and they just genuinely don't know how to love. Narcissism is a $10 word that gets thrown around in this day and age, but essentially it just means that you don't know how to love other people. And it's very important to get to an understanding of what that word even means. And he goes on to say, ultimately, love is everything. The mystery of love will be examined in later portions of this work. When we love something, it is of value to us, and when something is of value to us, we spend time with it. time enjoying it and time in taking care of it. Observe a teenager in love with his car and note the time he will spend admiring it, polishing it, repairing it, or tuning it. And that's very true. The things that we love, we spend our time doing, and we spend our time with if it's people. Good discipline requires time. When we have no time to give our children or no time that we're willing to give, we don't even observe them closely enough to become aware of when they need our disciplinary assistance. We need to, if we are growing a good child, we need to pay attention to him, see what he's doing, see when it's appropriate to nip and when it's appropriate to tuck. If we are impelled into action by their misdeeds and our irritation, we will impose discipline, often brutally, out of anger rather than deliberation, without examining the problem or even taking the time to consider which form of discipline is the most appropriate to that particular problem. So once again, you cannot inculcate in a child discipline if you don't have any discipline yourself. And all of us might need to go back and revisit lessons from childhood, or maybe go back and retool the things that happened in our childhood. We would call that trauma. Rework some of our parents' mistakes in ourselves. So it is that the quality of discipline afforded by loving parents is superior to the discipline of unloving parents. But this is just the beginning, and taking the time to observe and to think about their children's needs. Loving parents will frequently agonize over the decisions to be made and will, in a very real sense, suffer along with their children. The children aren't blind in this. They perceive it when their parents are willing to suffer with them. And although they may not respond with immediate gratitude, they will learn also how to suffer. Once again, it's an example. If your parents know how to bear suffering with dignity and strength and equilibrium, the child will learn typically to bear suffering with equilibrium and dignity and strength. The time and the quality of time that their parents devote to them indicate to children to the degree with which they are valued by their parents. The feeling of being valuable, I am a valuable person, is essential to mental health. Well, that's pretty obvious, but something that passes a lot of us by. We have to value ourselves. That comes from our childhood and the mirroring and the loving examples that our parents give to us, and that becomes the core of our being. There's genetics and genome. That'll be maybe a subject for another day. So that plays into it. But our parenting that we had as children is essential. And if it wasn't done right, we've just got to drill down into it and deal with it. So even if you don't have children, this isn't necessarily just about how you should parent as an adult. This is also coming to the realization that if things went awry in your childhood, maybe this is a way to deal with it and find some joy and happiness in your life on occasion, instead of just misery and suffering all the time from bad mistakes and negative feelings. The feeling of being valuable is a cornerstone of self-discipline, because when one considers oneself valuable, one will take care of oneself in all the ways that are necessary. And what does that mean? If we truly value ourselves in the core of our being, we will eat the right foods. We will take care of our bodies and exercise and do the things that we need to do. We will treat other people with dignity and respect because we're able to treat ourselves with dignity and respect. Maybe it even means forgiving yourself when you're not perfect. and being able to do some self-care. Essentially, I value myself, so I care for myself. These are great realizations. I'm not sure I've always come to these conclusions without a little bit of help from some reading materials. As a result of the experience of consistent parental love and caring throughout childhood, such fortunate children will enter adulthood not only with a deep internal sense of their own value, but also with a deep internal sense of security. All children are terrified of abandonment, and with good reason. And for me, this leads into some realizations and understanding about some of the patterns, relationship patterns that we get into with other people. If you're with a partner that constantly intones or intonates or gives you clues that you're going to be abandoned if you don't do this and that and the other thing, I've got some bad news. That's narcissism. That's not love. It's self-centeredness. That doesn't mean that spouses and partners and friends can always be perfect for us. Maybe we have to be able to care for them, but if we care for ourselves, we won't allow people to abuse us. And so these first couple chapters are a total foundation on the road to mental health and on the road to relationships that work. And this is why this book has been so valuable to me over a lifetime. It's been a crash course in life, as Toad the Wet Sprocket used to say in one of their songs. I've had a couple of marriages, and I'm on my third marriage. This one has gone the distance. It's gone 24 years. I did not always practice self-care. I did not always practice wisdom. I wanted to fit in with the crowd, wanted to go party, got involved with the wrong people, the wrong partners. I've learned a lot of my lessons, and I'm hoping for peace towards the last half of my life. I don't want to keep going through this, and so I feel some satisfaction in succeeding. By the way, the tree of life in the background, yes, I am paying homage to my Norse ancestors. No, I am not a pagan. I do appreciate historical religions and perspectives, particularly my own ancestors. But I also have a great-grandfather on my mother's side who was a full-blooded Cherokee Native American. And so I really honor and appreciate my Native ancestry and their religious and philosophical and spiritual perspectives too. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Why are you seeing this weird plaque hanging on my wall? And why are you seeing Toad the Wet Sprocket? Well, because I'm an old guy, and I really did appreciate Glenn Phillips and Toad the Wet Sprocket. If you want some really wonderful spiritual music, I highly recommend them, particularly their early albums. Well, let's see. What else does this have to say? Excuse me. There are some parents, for instance, who in their desire to enforce discipline as easily and quickly as possible will actually use the threat of abandonment overtly or subtly to achieve this end. The message they give to their children is, if you don't do exactly what I want you to do, I won't love you anymore. And I have to say that walking on the dark side of the street occasionally in my life, I've encountered some people and some lessons that I will share. Gosh, my eyes are starting to glaze over, these glasses. I'm reminded of women who will meet a man and he's not what you would call stable and hasn't had good parenting and tends to get violent, and then that man will start abusing the woman and maybe using physical violence against her. And that's a terrible tragedy, and a lot of women get caught in that trap, and they cannot seem to escape it without losing their lives. It's a terrible pattern to get caught in. And it is a symptom of not having self-care. You attract that kind of partner to you in the first place, and there is something strange about how we attract similar situations from our childhood. Something inside of us wants to heal from traumas that have happened in childhood, and we think we could do that in our current relationships. By the way, disclaimer, like the last video, I'm not a certified analyst or therapist or Jungian scholar. I'm a Jungian scholar. I will only claim the title of amateur investigator of psychology and sociology and relationships. And I'm only sharing my own life experiences here. Please consult professional help if you have serious problems in your life. If this gives you some incentive to go in that direction, then I've done what I have hoped to accomplish here. Conversely, with men, I recall going to visit a friend of mine, and he had some roommates. One of them was a gal, and I guess they were strapped financially, so they all lived in a big house together. And I remember she was mad at her husband, and I remember what came out of her mouth was, well, he's being such a jerk, it's time for an extramarital affair. And I just thought, oh boy, what a horror, that people would be married and would resort to those tactics to try to control and manipulate each other. So I'm not picking totally on just one gender or the other, or any gender for that matter. We can all play mind games with each other. Well, that's going to be it for chapter 2, which is called The Sins of the Father. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, you're welcome to join. I really don't consider this my attempt to be some internet guru. Please, I am not. I'm just a guy that has lived a lot of life now, as you could tell. Have a great day, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.